poet, teacher, mental health activist, Anna Vaught, and we will be discussing her astonishing book, Saving Lucia. I have to ask her how to pronounce it.
Lucia.
Lucia. Anna,
Mhm.
you're not on camera yet. Hold on. The people don't even know that you're here. Lucia, and it is about a woman who, not Lucia, but the other woman in that narrative, uh, assassinated Benito Mussolini, fascist leader Benito Mussolini in 1926, something I had no idea that this actually happened. And I always thought I was quite well versed on the rise of fascism and all the minutiae. Um, so we'll talk about that. Anna has also published a short story collection just recently called Famished, where food is evil in all sorts of ways. So a little trigger warning, which I issued earlier. We will be talking about mental health issues, and we will be talking about tribe. And if you don't know what tribe is, and if you're tribe curious, then just stick around. First, a few housekeeping notes before we introduce Anna. The show is co-produced by Strawberry Singh. We're booked all through 2021, but do send a suggestion to slbookclub@draxtor.com. And let's see here. We have our team to thank our team: Arduin Schwartzman, Marianne McCann, Arieto Chiori, Solas, all the Linden moles, all the Linden Lab employees, especially Brett and Patch. And Kralos makes avatars, and Silas Merlin makes super special avatars from scratch. And now it's time to introduce Anna. Anna, welcome to the Second Life Book Club. So awesome to have you.
Thank you. Merry Christmas.
Now, you appear as a trifle. I didn't know what a trifle was.
Mhm.
You wanted to be a trifle. Now, tell us, what is the significance of the what's the trifle business?
Well, more than one thing. So trifle is my favourite pudding in the world. Shall I explain what it is?
Yes.
Okay. Um, so your basic trifle, which is the food of the gods, it's like a sponge at the bottom, which is soaked in sherry, and then fruit on top of that, and then custard, vanilla custard on top of that, and then a layer of cream on top of that, thick double cream, and it's well chilled, and it's
Oh,
fantastic. Maybe a few flaked almonds. See, people do all kinds of posh things with trifle, but I was brought up on tinned fruit and sprinkles on the top. Nothing fancy, and it's wonderful. So there's that. So it's my favourite pudding, always has been all my life, but also it's referred to a couple of times in Famished, in my first book of short stories, as something that, if not gruesome, um, is
I,
a metaphor. Oh, I didn't
yeah.
mention the jelly. I am so sorry. I forgot
Wait.
the
There's
layer of
jelly.
jelly.
Oh my God. Is the
I
oh God.
know. How could I? I am so sorry. Over the sponge and the fruit, there's the jelly and the custard, and I'm sorry about the upset.
Oh, custard. Oh,
There's a
custard.
jelly rebellion on the right in the chat box. But yeah. So trifle is also referred to in Famished, and is used as a metaphor for life and its constituent parts.
As a
For
matter of
difficult
fact,
life.
I have Famished right here, and I would like to read a
Mm.
little excerpt, and we'll hear from you later. You'll read us a lot of
Mm.
stuff, including
Yeah.
a work in progress that has never been heard from before. But
Oh,
since we're
correct.
talking,
Hmm.
I want to set this up because you're Famished. I just finished Famished today, and it
Yeah.
is. I mean, it is really, really gruesome in the best possible way. I mean, I used to be a horror fanatic. Now, as an adult, I can't watch horror movies anymore. Now I read
Mm.
horror literary fiction. I think that
Yeah.
this is the genre. So
Literary horror.
your story is called What He Choked On, and this is
Mm.
where the trifle comes in. Let me read this
Mm.
very short excerpt here. And again, this is about a woman. Her name is Catherine, and it seems that her mother and her grandmother are really not good people. Okay.
Mm.
Keep it quiet, keep the house battened down. It's hard to explain this multi-layered suffering. If you took a food metaphor to deconstruct it, you could envision it like a trifle. On the bottom, there's the sponge, and that's feeling guilty about being born and being a burden to your mother. The sherry soaked into the sponge is the shame drenched on you by grandmother because you're not brave, not a trier, not pleasing, or masculine enough like other grandsons. Then you have fruit. The fruit, first of all, depends on your poshness. Posh folk add kiwi. The chavs tinned strawberries. No matter, though, for the metaphor works either way. The pieces of fruit are the odds and ends of bad dreams and chunks of scorn and the lumber of certain failures past and to come. The custard, it's vicious like aortic blood or the gloop they drain out from the corpses before they flush. It's death being trapped. Ah, the cream. Now, what is that? It's claustrophobia. You're in a classroom with the popular kids and they're pelting you on the back of your neck with the contents of the pencil cases and you don't turn around. You're told this won't last forever. And this is a tiny little glimpse of your excellent, exquisite writing, Anna, from Famished, out now from Influx Press.
Thank you.
It is amazing.
Thank
Uh,
you.
Now, how is the COVID affecting your creativity? This is a question
Oh,
we often ask in the beginning. And yeah, you told me actually,
yeah.
you already told me, but this would be, I think, very interesting
Mm.
for people to know. And here in the community,
Hmm.
people openly talk about how this affects folks, and it's of course it runs the gamut from folks being paralyzed by just by anxiety. But
Mm.
you had an encounter with COVID early on.
I had, well, I was ill, and two of my younger kids were ill back really in early March before any of this kicked off. And I was poorly for a bit, and then I had pneumonia.
Mm.
And I developed what we then realized was long COVID. So I've actually been ill for 9 months,
Wow.
to a greater or lesser extent. But it's so it's not fun. But you know how you hesitate to say that you're learning things because
Yeah.
it's just, it just sounds wrong. But I've had to pace myself, and so and just do more reading and more thinking and less writing, because I've also got lots of kids and I've had to continue working more or less. So it has been difficult, but it can continue. You just have to approach your creativity in a different form.
Mm. What do they mean by
Pacing.
long COVID? What do they mean by
So long COVID, I mean, just in the UK, they estimate that potentially 60 to 70,000 people, and not all of whom will have tested positive or know that they had COVID, will be affected long term by it. And for some, it's post viral fatigue and
Mhm.
exhaustion, low mood, chest pain, stomach upsets. Some people are bedridden with it, so it's quite a range of things. And so that's what it is. It's basically just a number of post-viral symptoms.
Mm.
It has inspired me to, and I can't tell you much about it, but it has inspired me to do more work of an online nature, and also to put together non-fiction work to
Mhm.
try and put more focus on people who were already in lockdown before any of this started. So people with fibromyalgia, chronic mental and physical health problems, ME and chronic fatigue. So it's really made me think about that as well. So it's, I've tried to take something positive from it, what I
Yeah.
can do as a piece of writing.
I mean, people
Yeah.
know that there's several folks here that I know in the audience from the
Mm.
disability community,
Hmm.
and what I learned by working with them is what you were saying here, the pacing.
Yeah.
When you're faced with something like this, it's
Oh,
very hard when you're sort of a little bit on the workaholic side of things
yeah,
to
really
to
hard.
accept that you can't continue like that.
Mm.
Yeah. I wonder. Sorry, go ahead.
No, no, let's carry on.
I'm wondering because your stuff is quite dark. I mean, I enjoy it. I mean, it's totally up my alley. But I wonder in the current situation and in your situation, but in the global COVID situation, have you
Mm.
thought about a project, maybe a work in progress, and thought about maybe shifting it to a more positive nature? I mean,
Ah,
I don't want to say that Saving Lucia, for example, is negative in a sense of the word. I think it's an ode, and we'll be talking about it in a minute. To me,
hmm,
this is an ode to imagination. It's celebrating
just
imagination.
so,
It
just so.
looks at the, women who had a hard life, but it's incredibly life affirming. So I don't want to
Yeah.
suggest that this is sort of, I don't know, cynically negative or something like that. But I
Hmm.
wonder in terms of tone, if you thought about that, that the situation is prompting, because a lot of people here say, "Oh, I can't read anything that's challenging. I only want to read romance novels," basically. Some people have told me.
I think that if something is dark and it's pretty, or if it's beautiful, I will still read it in dark times. And hopefully, um, if the language is pretty and fascinating and engaging, it is
Mhm.
still uplifting. So I hope for that for readers. Also, both books are very autobiographical. Famished is more autobiographical than you can possibly imagine. Hence the little acknowledgements at the back. More of this book is true than you can imagine.
Oh boy.
So they're both my stories and the sort of background of trauma and complex extended
Mhm.
difficult things are woven in. So there is that. But in the books that I've been working on, so the Zebra and Lord Jones, which I shall read from later, and in some of my other fiction, it is. I wouldn't say it's lighter, but it's less. It's less sort of enmeshed in, sort of dark detail than
Mhm.
Famished and Saving Lucia are. And also my second book, I know we're not really going to talk about these tonight. My first book is autobiographical. My second book is a funny little novella, which actually is quite joyful.
They're all here on
So
the table, by the way. So
oh,
your first one,
you've got the Life
yeah,
of
yeah.
Almost. Ah,
I,
look at him there.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. Please, folks
Yeah,
can cam around on the table, and they'll find the Life
yeah.
of Almost.
A Life of
That's
Almost.
your autobiographical book.
No, that's the Killing Hapless Ally, which is on the top of the table. That's autobiographical
Ah, there it is. Mhm.
fiction. Well, it's a memoir, really, but autobiographical fiction for the market. And then The Life of Almost it's a magical realism, and it's about calling up a story when you are sad, which is also a theme in Saving Lucia. So it's a book that's also about the imagination, but the imagination in a more light-hearted way, maybe. Yeah.
So let's go to Saving Lucia,
Hmm.
and then we'll go back to Famished and look deeper into your
Past? No.
into your past. Yes,
You
I
can if you ask me anything. Anything. I'm very
I
open.
mean,
Carry on.
Anna, I have to tell you, this was, of course, billed primarily as sort of a book discussion, but what it really is one of those public displays that the Dr. Jean-Martin Charcot did
Mm.
with with his patients,
Oh God.
um, live. Actually, let me bring this up here, and then we'll
Mm.
wind our way back.
Blanche.
Yes, and we see now, if the camera focuses on the image overhead, this is a painting by Andrew.
Ah,
I cannot pronounce
Brie.
French.
Hmm.
Brouillet,
Mm.
where you see a whole bunch of men. They're looking at a woman
Ah.
who
Oh,
who
here she
seems,
is. Yeah.
yeah. The woman is unconscious, and she's held by another man. There's a nurse, and there is this guy with the slick back hair, and that
Oh,
is
and the
the
felt
doctor.
coat.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and he is the father of modern
Neurology.
neurology,
Mm.
and he this was one of his patients, a woman by the name of Blanche Whitman, whose father possibly locked her into coffins. He was a carpenter, and he locked her in coffins when he had his
I made
episode?
that bit up.
Oh, you made that up.
Yeah, that bit. Yeah, it's woven.
Oh.
It's a historical fiction, so
Right. I
that's
should actually
yeah.
say that this was yeah, I have an assault question for you. Historical fiction, Anna, is it not just confusing people what's right and what is not right?
Do you mean right as in correct, as
Right
in
as in
true?
factual, yes. You have
A lot of the book is factual, but there are little details, particularly with Blanche, because we know so little about her, where I'm imagining knowing what I've been able to find out, which is not very little about her family, what
Mhm.
her background, what her suffering might have been. Can I answer a question in the chat
Oh,
box as
please. We
well?
we have we
Well,
have chat. Yes, we're weaving
it's
that in.
just
Go ahead.
it's just that it's kind of relevant to maybe everything we say tonight, if that's all right. And it's just why the interest in mental health conditions. Because well, because of my background, because of my teaching interests, and also because of me. I am somebody who comes from a background of long and complex trauma, and I live with the fallout of that. And I have an interest in the link between that and creativity, and that and our uses of the imagination. That's
Mhm.
why.
And let me set up, and I think that'll become clear. Stella was asking this in the local chat. I put the cart in front of the horse because we were talking here about the patient, so I brought up this picture. But let's just set up the
Mm,
basic premise of Saving Lucia,
mm,
which is about a woman by the name of Lady Violet Gibson, who comes
yep,
from an aristocratic background, and
yep,
she shot Benito Mussolini in
mm,
1926 at a time when Benito Mussolini was not, universally seen as a genocidal maniac, but was actually,
correct.
yeah, I mean, he was
Mm,
chummy with Churchill.
yeah.
Um, and let me bring up this picture here.
Mm.
This is Lady
Oh,
Violet.
here she is. She shot him in the nose. She shot
She
to
shot.
kill. He
She shot
moved.
him in the nose. Yes.
He moved his head, and her bullet skimmed his nose. So if you Google Mussolini shot, you'll always see Mussolini with a bandage across his nose, and that was
We
her.
have it here. We're well prepared. Here is
Oh,
the
you're
police
good.
report. Here's the police report of Violet Gibson, and here's
Eh,
Mussolini with the band-aid over his nose.
yeah, there
Now,
he is. Yeah.
she was 50 years old at the time, and
Mhm.
she was, uh, put away in an asylum in
Yeah.
Northampton, and this
Yeah.
is where she died, I
Yes,
believe,
she
in
did.
in 1956. So this is
Correct.
where your story takes place in this
Yes.
St. Andrew's Hospital.
Yep.
Why is the book called Saving Lucia? Now, what's going on there?
Well, because her co-patient, well, there have been a number of famous people at St Andrews, which is still one of the largest mental health hospitals. I think it's actually the largest and part of a larger organisation in the UK. Anyway, her co-patient was Lucia Joyce, who was the daughter of James Joyce, novelist, who had herself come from various institutions and been brought from France to be, as Joyce said, or it's what he didn't want, but she was incarcerated among the English.
What
Anyway,
was her problem?
well, this is the thing. Lucia Joyce is widely reported as suffering from schizophrenia.
I'm putting her picture behind you, by the way. She was a
Yeah.
dancer as well.
Oh, look at
Hmm.
her. That's so sad.
Hmm.
Oh, she's beautiful. She's dancing Salome. It's not quite in focus, but I think I see. Yeah, there we are. Oh my
Hmm.
goodness. Yeah. So, yes, there was a gender bias on who was
We'll get to that.
institutionalized.
Stella
Yeah.
in the chat, she's snipping the kettle,
But
and
yeah,
we'll get to all that because I think that's the big theme as well. Because we're talking about
one of
women
them.
who
Yeah.
are institutionalized
Yeah.
here, and they, in one form or another, were well, they were
Mm,
difficult women, but not
yes.
necessarily, in a way where they had to be locked away until they died. They just
No.
had different ideas. They wanted to pursue male careers. They didn't want to,
Well,
as I
they
said,
just
achieve.
argued, or they were just in the way.
Yeah,
Oh,
but they were
you were
also,
asking.
but they were also. I'm sorry, I'm stepping on you, but you were just saying that
Mm.
Lucia was actually diagnosed with
She was,
schizophrenia.
yes, but she had other diagnoses as well. And other, well, when I say other diagnoses, there was doubt about her diagnosis
Hmm.
throughout her life. That's what we hear most. She was clearly very, very troubled. I also feel, um, I think that there must have been, I say without passing judgment, but I suppose I do in the book. I think that she had also a very, very difficult life for lots of reasons. There must have been so many factors. And at the end of Saving Lucia,
Her father was a famous writer, James Joyce,
yes, Fintroys.
Ulysses Finnegan's Wake, and the mother. This
Yeah,
is also what I learned from your book. The
Nora
mother
Barnacle.
completely abandoned her. She wanted to kind of get rid of her.
Her mother did not visit her once she was sent to Northampton in England. No, her brother Giorgio did once, but that was it. Saving Lucia, though, the title, it's Violet's notion. Violet, in her last days, not conceives, is determined to perform like a fantasy and escape because she knows she's not getting out. She knows she's tried and she's tried. There are lots of letters that she wrote which were not sent, where she desperately tried to be released from Northampton and could have been. Like Lucia, really. And so she makes friends with Lucia and asks Lucia to be her scribe in writing down this story that she's rehearsed for years, which is to put together herself, the people in her life, Lucia and the people in Lucia's life, and two other famous psychiatric patients,
Hmm.
Blanche Whitman and Anna O, whose real name was Bertha Pappenheim. And she imagines this fantasy where they all have this tremendous adventure together, and they right wrongs, and they see people that they would otherwise never get to see again. And oh, look who we've got. And we we get to and so when she's saving Lucia, she's both liberating her, and which is not really what happened, but it's what happens in the book. When she gets out, she's also saving her because she's writing down her story, a
Hmm.
story or an imagined story of that might otherwise have been lost, but not of a patient, not of only somebody without voice, but somebody who was brave, who was magnificent, and who suffered and survived, like all of them did.
And
So
Violet
there's
by
your
us
saving.
wonderfully summarized. This book
Mm.
is really like I said in the onset. It's celebrating imagination. These
Yes,
women are locked up, and like you said, Violet, the older one, Lucia is a lot younger when she
she's
comes
younger.
in
Yeah,
there.
yeah.
And Violet, by assigning her the job
Mm.
as the scribe,
Mm.
is saving her. And we're not going to give
Yeah.
away the
The,
what's happening, but it's a
mm,
brilliant way to. I found it quite brilliant how you visualized what they did and how they
mm,
freed themselves from these
mm,
confines of the asylum. One
mm.
thing right in the beginning, and it reoccurs, is one image of,
The bird.
yes, Violet Gibson. She asks someone to
Mm.
sew pouches um, into her coat,
True
and
story.
she put bird seed into these pouches, and then she stands there
Yeah,
outside, and the birds come and they feed. I mean, it's
they
just
do.
incredible. Yeah.
Would you like me to tell you about that? Have we got time?
Yes, and if you want to read, I mean, we totally have time. I want to say one thing: the image that you see now behind you, that's Blanche Whitman. We saw her earlier, and I'm going to change this image to the other, the fourth protagonist in the book,
Mm.
um, Bertha Pappenheim.
Bertha Pappenheim,
Very
otherwise
interesting.
otherwise known as Anna O, whose
Yep.
uh, whose treatment and case is recorded in Breuer and Freud's On Hysteria.
And the On Hysteria book, we also have it here on the table, actually. I downloaded the
Oh,
um,
oh, you're
Studien in
good.
Hysterie by Johann Breuer and Sigmund
Yeah,
Freud.
yeah.
And she was the patient, and she she was, I mean, she
Oh,
did a lot of amazing things in her life. She
she did.
founded a home for Jewish girls.
Yeah.
She was killed in Auschwitz, by the way. So all these
No,
people, I mean,
she
yeah.
wasn't. She died of natural causes, but Hannah Kalminsky, who worked with her, did die. Hmm.
Thank you, Anna. How did I get this fact wrong?
Well, is
I w-
that because it's a detailed and confusing book?
no, but I was just trying to verify
Yeah.
where Bertha passed away. But let me. No, she was. Oh,
Mm.
no, you're right. Hannah Karminski was. Okay, let's not get bogged down in details. People can look this up. It's
Yeah.
all documented, and one of the pleasures of a book like yours is that you're sitting there and then you're looking this stuff up, and so you could normally read this book very quickly, but it's the
I
pleasure is you get really transported into history, and of course, when you're me, then you get these details wrong,
I
but still.
do. I have written a little article, which is a biography of each woman,
Mhm.
which is on my blog if anybody wants to see. We sort of thought of putting it in the back of the book, but we took it out in the end. But it's on my blog, so it gives you a little life history. Hmm.
Now, would you
Now.
like to read us
Oh,
something
yes, I
from
was going to tell you about the birds, wasn't I?
Yeah, please,
Yeah,
yes.
just really quickly, and then shall I read? You want me to? Yeah, the reason I knew about Violet is because I saw by chance a picture of an elderly lady with birds all over her. She was turned away from the camera, and I just happened to see it. I was just Googling something, and I saw this, and I thought, who is that? And I looked it up, and that is where the story began. And from there, I found her last remaining nurse, who's actually in her 90s and in Massachusetts. And that's why the book is dedicated to the nurses who cared for her, because I found the family. And I interviewed her, and they did, because she loved to feed the birds. That's when she was happiest. They sewed pouches into her coat and her
Mm.
dresses, and they filled them with bird seed. And that was her happy time. Yeah,
Ah,
that was moving, just to talk to them about that. Yeah, became a bit more real.
that's just such an amazing image that goes
Mm.
through the whole book. And
Hmm.
if you're just tuning in on the streams, we're talking with Anna Vaught, author of Saving Lucia and Famished. Those are the two books that
Mm.
I read, and then looked stuff up on Wikipedia and got the details wrong, so I get a C plus. This
Oh, and
thought, right?
there's links. There's all people putting links there. Thank you very much to my blog, The Women of Saving Lucia.
Ah,
There you
good,
go.
good.
That's kind.
And the other books of yours, they're currently not in circulation. The older books, is that
No,
right?
they're not. You will see them again. See,
Great.
I'm quite a new writer, really. I'm only, I'm under 5 years into this. I've just been busy.
Oh, this is not a
Oh,
popularity contest where you're like,
no, I
Anna,
know.
why have you not written 20 books? What's wrong with you?
Oh, she was locked up and died just
Yeah,
20 minutes away
Ruby in
from
the
where
chat
I
chat
live.
Ruby in
Yeah.
the chat says she was locked up and died just 20 minutes away from I live.
Mm.
And the
So
asylum.
interesting.
Let me put up this image one more time, because the asylum, when I read up on this asylum, and we're talking about these women were, they had mental health issues, but the
Yes.
way they were sort of locked away and forgotten about is obviously absolutely not acceptable. What I
No.
found interesting is that this asylum that is now an institution that is still running,
It's a psychiatric
psychi-
hospital. Yeah.
psychiatric hospital,
Hmm.
actually had a lot of problems up
I
until like
know.
2 years ago. They found that
Yes.
autistic children were locked
I know.
away and
I
sort
know.
of forgotten, like for 2 days in solitary confinement.
And I worried about this because there'd been a fairly recent program on the BBC here. So it was an undercover investigation into the hospital, and I worried about this when the book came out. But
Mm.
Nothing came of it. But yes, it did. It's had some quite serious issues. Yeah. Mm.
That's really shocking.
Mm.
So let's
Yeah,
read a
that's
little
right,
bit.
Peter. Thank you. Yeah. So BBC and Channel 4, he's
Ah,
told me. So yeah, there were two documentaries.
I
Wow,
wonder if
good
folks in the world,
audience.
if folks in the world can look up these links, that'd be very interesting because I'll put it on the podcast blog for Monday too. I'll look that up. Let's do a little reading, and then
Okay.
I do want to know more about your own history before we get into
Yeah.
the whole food thing.
Okay.
This is Anna, and if you want to get up, if you
Can
feel
can I can I be honest with you that
yes,
I was talking about long COVID earlier? I
yes,
have the most awful vertigo, everybody, and at the moment my head is swimming. Would you mind awfully if I stayed on the sofa? Would
not
that
at
be
all,
okay?
because we are here in a world where the magic
Okay.
happens, look, the book stand is magically
Oh,
moving towards you.
oh, aren't
You
you good? Yeah,
yes, see?
that's
I mean,
lovely. Oh,
let me
thank you.
let me
Yeah.
just remind people that you cannot do this on Zoom, for example, just to mention a
Oh,
random
that's lovely. Yeah.
platform.
Shall I read? How about
Yeah.
I read from the first page of the book?
Okay, so you're going to read right from the beginning. Okay, cool.
Would that be okay? I know you
Yes.
like the letters, didn't you? So I
No,
can
no, no. It's up to you.
read.
You're the guest. You're the
All right.
you are in charge.
Okay. Ah. Okay, so this is the beginning of the book. Do my stage cough. Once I, I don't know who I,
And this is let me
I don't
properly
know who I
read.
think I am.
This is Anna
All
Vaught
right.
reading from Saving Lucia, page one.
Right. Violet Albina Gibson, the Honourable, was behind bars, wearing an immaculate black crepe dress, clasping her finest manners and a lovely lacquered fountain pen for letters to Churchill and others. She was a criminal because, in April 1926, in Rome, she shot Mussolini. And she was insane with it, an assassin with devotions, prayers, and visions, not a steady-handed murderer, but one that broke apart most untidily and could not be trusted. In prison, in Rome, she threw a chamber pot at her guard and a flower press at a crack brain. For an honourable lady, such rude things, she said. Then there were the screams and intransigence, strange mystical tantrums. And in 1927, when they put her in the mental hospital in England, behind those necessary bars, through which you saw a fine vista, oh, and the borders were lovely this year, she would never do a jigsaw or embroidery when instructed for her own good. Only towards the end of her life would she do one thing they suggested. She agreed to stand outside with the birds and encourage them to feed from her hands. Other than that, a hopeless, obdurate virago. A strange, dotty old girl mad with religion, and a danger, or a nuisance, or both.
You can keep reading. This is lovely.
Do you want me to?
Yes. Why not up until number two? Right? That's another.
Well, do you want me to?
How
That's
do you
quite a
feel?
lot. Yeah, no, fine. Well, dizzy.
I I really don't want to force it on you. I mean,
That's fine. I can read a different bit if you'd rather.
this is so lovely, yeah, or
Okay.
something else.
I'll read.
You know,
I'll read. Shall I read on, everybody? Somebody tell me. Yes, as long as
yes,
you. Aren't they lovely? Your
yes.
audience.
My
Look at them.
audience is the best
Okay.
audience.
I'll read. I'll read on from where I was. When she was locked up here at St Andrew's Hospital, Northampton, a lovely old house for those I call the feebles, I'm one of them, as you shall see. The case of murder was cleared up altogether. She was pardoned by Benito once his thugs were convinced she was on her own, just a crazy hag, taken leave of her senses, not a killer in a conspiracy. After a beating, by Mussolini's baying crowd, prison and the asylum in Rome and the embarrassment of the Foreign Office and family, this, what we have now, was the right thing to do. It used to be called the General Lunatic Asylum, where they put the people like us. There are many lifers here. They give them routine and mahogany, croquet on the lawns and medications to soothe, and bars on the sash windows which have been denuded of cords, just in case. They must have lost the odd one, surely, but records of lives, as I have discovered, and as I will show you here, can go awry. But as I was saying, St Andrews is quite a select place if you have the money, because you get a well-appointed room of your own to be mad in. Feather down for your tears, even the illusion of freedom. They are aristocrats, some of the inmates, and all of means, so that's what Violet got. Posh. Still, you are locked in, surrounded by mutes doing crochet. Violet rocked into silence when it was all too much, but sometimes, as you will learn, she emerged, and oh Lord, she was jubilant, full of a reckless imagination, and so it was that in the last days of her last year, when she and I were patients and friends together, she asked me to be her scribe. Violet was determined not to be reduced to hearsay and notes in hospital archives. She was clever too, and kind, because she knew when I arrived all about me. That I was the dotty daughter of the genius writer. I heard her whisper to me that she felt I'd been forgotten. Also, that I had reduced myself, and if I would only back up my ideas. And she said, "Dear, dear girl, none of that is good enough, and I long to set you free." So, this is her story, and also mine, in what it gifted to me. Will you come? It will jangle, what with Violet's verbal flights of fancy, but I so wanted to write a more or less true story. My own previous work, my pretty inchoate novel, had all been burned up by the family, I feared, so I tried like I had never done before and became Violet's scribe. Sometimes I took notes from her direct. Sometimes I listened in to visitors, the medical staff, or the most lucid of the other inmates. I patiently assembled and edited and imagined, just as Violet had done with her memories and the tales she needed to tell. I worked like crazy, and then I was sane enough. This is how it began. When the old demented crone tried to find some peace and to save me. When she done with trying to change history. Oh, she was quite a girl. And that
And
is
that's
chapter 1.
Anna Vaught reading from Saving Lucia. Thank you. This is absolutely wonderful. Again, this is the voice of Lucia. She's narrating
Mm,
the book. Sometimes it's intentionally
mm,
unclear. I think you kind of weave it in and out. It's
mhm,
wonderful. Who's actually talking, and she's
mm,
talking about Violet Gibson. I have
mm.
behind us we see Lucia,
Oh,
Lucia Joyce,
yeah,
and Violet
yeah,
Gibson.
yeah.
A quick question. I mean, we know that the practice of psychiatry has evolved from those days. I mean, notwithstanding what we just discussed, but still, all this stuff that's still going on
Mm,
in St. Andrews
mm,
and other places when these scandals come out, when people are mistreated. And I worked as a civil servant 25 years ago in a psychiatric institution in Munich, and I saw
mm.
things that were not scandals. I just saw people, staff basically burned out. And it was for me
Yeah.
coming in fresh with energy. It was really frustrating to see them just like, yeah, let her talk, just give her a little bit more medication and it'll be fine. And
Mm,
um, but I was wondering when you researched this era
yeah.
and these women, um, what could have been done better at the time,
Well, we
given what?
know.
Yeah,
I,
go ahead.
I can tell you something without sort of spoiling the ending. We know that Violet was considered not to be dangerous anymore. And we know that she had been petitioning towards the end of her life for a community of nursing nuns to look after her so that she could leave St Andrews. So it appears that that could have happened. So what could have been done there? She could have been let out,
Hmm.
but she wasn't. And Lucia, well, again, that's addressed in the book because, again, we know that with the development of, I always get these the wrong way around, psychotropics and psychogenics, but we know that in the sort of the latter part of the book, there would have been medication that potentially could have been useful to Lucia. We know that she had somebody who was prepared to be her sponsor so that she could at least try and experience life again in the outside world. But again, none of that happened. So what could have been done differently? I suppose opportunities
Yep.
could have occurred.
Evaluate the cases, reevaluate
Yes.
them. But why do you think, speculation now, why
Yeah.
was it not happening for Violet and why was it not happening for Lucia? Because they come from from vastly different uh
Mm,
backgrounds, and the reason for them being institutionalized in the first place is of course very different. But
yes.
why
Mm.
was Violet? I mean, she was older, but what was interesting, because I mean she assassinated Mussolini, and then
She
later
tried
it
to. Yeah.
yeah, right. It was pretty clear that she was not, she might have been uh
Mhm.
I don't know, misguided at the time, or
Uh, well, there's a bit more to it than that.
okay.
She had been in nursing care before because she had tried to kill herself before, and she'd also taken to a member of the sort of the waiting staff in the Gibson residence with a knife. So she she had done some things before, and she was considered to have homicidal tendencies, but they were considered to be. If not extinguished, at least dormant. Plus, she was old and frail. Why the
Mm,
decision not to let her out or be somewhere else? I I think we would have to hypothesize that because it was easier to leave her where she was,
it's always easier. Then
because she was already there, and the same with Lucia.
let's not get
And
too much
and and
into.
Lucia would have been left in France as well had a family friend not intervened. So, you know,
Yeah, then let's not get too much into speculation,
okay.
because I'm also just glancing at the time, and
Oh yes.
still want to read. And by the way, we have
Mm,
our normal post game where we hang out with the in-world crowd,
yeah,
and
I know.
we will visit a new place, the Gallery of Floating Books, which will be revealed today,
Hmm.
um, as a little preview. But your own, if before we go to Famished, and
Mm,
you're going to read to us from Famished
yeah,
as well, yes,
yeah,
Anna?
I will. Yeah, of course.
Oh, thank you. Now, what is Famished in relation with your own struggle with mental illness, if you want to reveal a little?
Well, both Lucia and Famished are connected to the theme of trauma and survival. But Famished in particular is just to do with situations of coercive control, difficult things in a family home, beautiful food but prepared spitefully, all things that gradually tipped me over as I was a child and as I was growing up. So that's all mixed in
Mhm.
with a number of the stories. So yeah.
The stories, what they have in common is that the
Mm,
ritual of preparing food, which can be a wonderful
mm,
ritual in a family context,
hmm.
is really
It's subverted. Mm,
it's terrible in, yeah,
mm,
in your stories.
mhm.
it is not fun for the people involved.
But they survive it. Well,
Hmm.
no, there's the odd one that doesn't. But in general, yeah,
I
yes.
think the story that you're going to read, I think there might be somebody who's not surviving it. But how do you? I mean, I don't want to probe here, but I know that you're
Hmm.
also you're fairly open, I guess, about your own story. I mean,
Yeah.
if you want to share a little bit with us what your story is with your own trauma?
Oh well, just a very difficult family home, but not
Hmm.
one that was known to the outside world. So I was. Oh, there's some things I can say and some things I can't because of the sort of people who are still around from that era. But it just sustained gaslighting,
Hmm.
psychological abuse, violence, just any number of things, but in a place where I could tell nobody. And I was never able to tell anybody. And so that's why, the whole imagination and then the concept of the imagination being really substantial and really vibrant to me is so important because that's how I managed it because there was nothing else I could do.
How do
Mm.
you do what do you do in terms of activism or bringing this to the fore other than in your writing, which I think is hugely important. And then when you get through the books, I can imagine that
Mm.
then these topics come up like they do
Hmm.
right now. um uh, but do you do any
I
type of other activism around
I
these issues?
do. Well, I've always campaigned for better mental health provision, particularly for younger people.
Hmm.
Um, as part of the work I do volunteer mentoring. And although that is educational, that is often with young people who have a number of other issues and things that have been troubling them, which have upset them. So it's a sort of combination of those two things really over the years. So just free work, community work that I do on top of any paid work I do really, and I've always done it.
Hmm.
So yeah, that's essentially it. And I do have some projects coming up next year, writing projects, which I can't talk about yet, but that'll be part of it too. It's exciting.
What is most exciting, what I can see,
Mm,
and I don't know what you're doing, but if you're not doing it, then here I'll give you an idea, and I give everyone the idea,
mm,
is to teach writing or using writing or poetry, even or short form for folks that are
mm.
trying to express themselves. I was
Yes.
involved in a project in San Francisco where a wonderful group was basically teaching kids, inner city kids, to use poetry to express themselves, which was
Hmm.
amazing.
I'm going to be doing online mentoring with a couple of
Mhm.
charities next year, doing just that. So again, I can't tell you about it yet, but I'm just so excited, so excited. Mm.
Okay, so then don't tell us about it, but
I'll
read.
come back and tell you. Right,
Yes,
what do you want then? So, what do you want? Tripe? Would you like tripe? Has we been?
we've been talking about tribe. Yeah, actually, I actually
Oh,
I have it extracted from the book, and I have it here as a slide. But you wanted to read the first story, or
I can. Which story would you like?
let's do the first one.
Fine. Cave Venus et Stellus.
Carvavina at
Yeah,
Stellus.
Cave. Yeah, it's
What
kind
does
of
that
called.
mean?
No, well, it's not completely accurate Latin deliberately, but it essentially beware Venus and stars. Evil laugh.
Okay.
There we go. Yeah, you see why at the end of the story. Were the succession of stars endless, then the background of the sky would present us a uniform luminosity, which is a little preface from Edgar Allan Poe's A Eureka. It is a strange place, a cold street, in which the temperature seems to drop as you round the corner. You feel the breeze cut into you. Sometimes you think you must have imagined it, but no, there it is again. A street that looks the same as the last, but also inescapably, irresistibly different. The young man, lean and callow, has been called upon to work for the shadowy residents of this street. There, every day, posters delivered, collected from doormats, papers from drives and houses and gardens that are maintained in pristine condition, and yet we see no one, telling ourselves only that the street's inhabitants must keep rather bohemian hours. So, the young man, a fine carpenter, it is said, is called to the fifth house in the street, a high house like all the others, with imposing gables and a tall chimney stack. He rings the bell, and a lady answers, ivory and willowy with intense blue eyes. She sees him start just a little, as one does when confronted with flagrant beauty. Won't you come in? So much to do. All the time, she sips from a little cup. Sip, sip. He averts his eyes from her cherry lips. Inside the house, it is a world away from the modern suburban street. All billowing drapes, commodious cabinets of dainty phials and bottles, Venetian mirrors and candelabra, and little cups, so many little cups on narrow shelves, like the one she carries. Sip, sip. With fluted saucers, Japanese and Chinese designs, lacquer work. His eye is drawn everywhere all at once, and she senses this. Yes, I am quite a collector, as you see. Well, I'm wondering, miss, is it miss, which jobs you need doing? Ah, yes. But first, won't you have some tea? Come through, and you may use my first name, Stella. Oh, beware of the step there, the step down. Beware, won't you? There is a tiny flutter in his heart for the unusual patina of her syntax. The kitchen is through the long, narrow hallway with its intricate pattern of hexagonal tiles. Over the step, do you beware? And there he is, in a room with a vast azure ceiling upon which are painted many tiny gold stars. He would have thought it exquisite had it not already begun to make him dizzy. On the floor, he thinks, counting quickly, that he sees aureate stars limned with a pretty language he does not know, so exquisite. But she distracts his gaze and boils water in an old-fashioned urn. Strange, he thinks, why no kettle? Rather too much for tea for two. She makes tea in a lovely, highly polished silver pot. Again, it seems disproportionately large. They drink, though it is sour. Sip, sip. I think I'm going to stop there. Shall I?
Yeah, yeah. I
Sip,
mean,
sip.
oh, this is a great cliffhanger. This is a great cliffhanger.
Oh,
And see, now I understand
yeah.
with your context. I mean, here is a suburban
Mm.
street. It's all
Sip, sip.
quiet. It all everything is looks in order.
Ah, in
Everybody's
order.
just sipping
Yes,
tea, right?
lovely.
Order.
If it's not,
So
it's evil in this house. Yeah.
so this is Anna Vaught reading from Famished, out now from Influx Press, and I
Uh-huh.
stress this every time we are celebrating the art of writing here at the book club in this community, and writing can only continue if readers read, which means if you fancy, pick up one of these books and you will not regret it. I know Christmas is in a couple of days, so you can reward yourself after Christmas, or do a rush order. Who cares? The point is, it is very important to support not only writers, but also in this case the independent press that is putting these books out. So
Yeah.
yeah, you'll find the information here by clicking those links on the table and
Mm-hmm.
pick them up. I mean, we didn't even get started with the tribe, and we won't.
We won't.
No, no more tribe. We talked about this before the camera rolled.
Yeah, we did.
There's a lot of tribe in this book as well.
Yeah, there is. Now you're being rude.
No, there's
Right.
also cherries and strawberries and
Yes.
wonderful. I mean, there's
Yeah.
also candied rocks, in a nice
Candy
little
floss.
candy floss. Who
Yeah,
doesn't love candy floss?
everybody loves candy floss. Yeah,
Absolutely.
and
Absolutely.
Seaside Rock, which is
Seaside.
actually murderous.
What is
Anyway.
Seaside Rock actually? What is that? Is
It's
that a
it's
British
so
thing?
it's yeah, it's like a oh, you know when someone says what is that and you somehow can't describe it. It's like a cylinder of like a candy cylinder, and
Mhm.
it has writing all the way through it. And the classic one, I suppose, is pink. You get in the Seaside. It's pink on the outside and white in the inside, usually minty. But yeah, it's sugar. Yeah, and you're supposed to suck it, but you can just bite it
Oh,
off.
no. Oh, and Ava says in the chat, basically cylinders
Yeah,
full of sugar. Yeah.
yeah. Normally the place. Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah, that's like the really important thing. It has the words, it's like the words that are in it, which is part of the story, that words that shouldn't be there start appearing. It has the name of the seaside place.
Uh-huh.
Inside the rock. Yeah,
But you have to eat it first, and then it's good for your teeth as well, says Peter in the chat. Now,
completely. Yeah.
we're running up against the clock.
Yes.
I mean, how do you feel? I really don't want to overdo it with the reading. If you want to do a little bit of your work in progress, you
I
don't have
shall.
to. Yeah.
I shall. So I've got
So set
there's
this up for us.
yeah. So okay. So there's all kinds of things coming, sitting on desks, being written, and it's been
Mhm.
such an odd year. This is a little something which I hope you will all meet at some point, and it's a novel called The Zebra and Lord Jones. And just like my seeing a picture of Violet Gibson by chance, I happened to see, when I was looking at researching something else, I happened to see something about London being bombed during the Blitz, more specifically, London Zoo being bombed
Mhm.
during the Blitz and a zebra escaping. And then I started thinking, how far did that zebra get? Actually, it was only just up the road before it escaped. And there's a painting of it and various photographs of this zebra running
Wow.
in London. But in my story, she meets somebody. She meets a man. A man. He's a toff. He's a very posh man. He's a member of the aristocracy, but he is lost. He's completely lost. Comes from an execrable fascist supporting family. There's lots of lines here, but it's basically the story of what happens when the man meets the zebra and the zebra meets the man.
And the story is called The Zebra
The
and Lord
zebra
Jones.
and Lord Jones. Yeah, I don't want to
Uh,
tell you too much.
no, no,
I
this is
don't know.
good.
I could no, I could have that could have been more of a hook, to be honest. But there
No,
we
this is a great hook. Let me tell you,
are.
this is a great hook. And by the way, the book in front of you, this is, of course, a preliminary cover, which is drawn by myself. This is not going
Yay.
to be the final cover. It's hand
Yay.
drawn. I love the setup. I love the setup because what I learn about contemporary British authors like yourself, there's always a posh man somewhere and some sort of fascist background.
Yeah, it's actually
This
I've
is your class
also
rebellion there in your
well,
classist
yes.
society.
I
Hmm.
tell you what it's not. It's not a soft story about a nice posh man. It's
Hmm.
ra- it's rather a lot more than that. And what happens next, but there is a great deal about the war in there. There would have to be, but it's also my sort of landscape book. And yeah, I will. I'll tell you more about it when I'm allowed to. I know I'm being a bit vague.
It's
Oh,
awesome. It's totally
anyway.
appetizing to me. I'm pre-ordering it right now. I'm not kidding you. This
Okay.
a
Okay.
zebra and a okay, go ahead, go ahead.
Okay. So this is. I won't read you the preface, but this is just the first couple of paragraphs. So, ah, as London burns, the zebra provides a flash of light, perhaps even a flash of hope amid the chaos, which came from a newspaper report at the time. Anyway, Hertfordshire, 1909. Some zebras are raised on bark and leaves, but may have fruit on special occasions. Some boys are raised on doughty privilege, rich pigeon faggots and mustard sauce. Either or both may nonetheless fail to thrive. Here was one now, a boy, not a zebra, and he had just eaten devilled kidneys and sweetbreads. Robert Ashman was the timid and sickly only son of Earl and Lady Ashburn of Ashburn House, Hertfordshire. When very young, despite the excellence of the savoury course in his family home, and despite the doughty privilege, he did not know who he was, even in the sense that children, or the fully grown, have a powerful sense of what they look like, some things in which they believe or do not believe, and what they enjoy doing. This boy knew only that he had been destined to be a man of means, that he was ill a lot, had no particular virtue, and that his eyes were blue. As a child, he had no particular friends and was not strong in mind, as his parents frequently pointed out. His father was greatly fond of intoning that his progeny's manifest weakness could be compensated for by the good fortune gracing his birth. His parents were extremely rich in money, property, and thoroughbred horses, well connected and cloaked in the sort of arrogance which comforts those who have it, but which leads those who do not to vomit into the nearest hedgerow. Earl Ashburn would have explained to you, however, that those people vomit because they are not destined to matter in any way, and quite likely some of them would go on to eat their own ejector. And that is the first paragraph of the book.
Thank you, Anna. This is
Yeah.
Anna reading. Thank you so much. This is really, it's just really exquisite language.
It's different, isn't it? Very different.
But you have such command of the language. I mean, I say this
Thank
almost
you.
every week. I come from a little bit of an elitist background in the sense that my mother was appalled by me reading Conan and fantasy and pulp, and she wanted me to
Mm,
read good language, and she was always on about the language. But as you know, teenagers are more about the action,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
But I come to appreciate language so much, and so this is a real gift.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. I would say if folks have questions for you now, we have a few more minutes on the
Yeah,
air, and then
yeah.
we'll go off the air and mingle in the book club. If you see
Sure.
the book club full, if you're in Second Life right now and you see the book club as full, try again because it maybe one or two people will leave. We're full house right now.
Mhm.
Um, and Anna, if you want to turn into a zebra, you don't have to, but you have
Oh, I might. I got my T-shirt. I don't know. Oh, hang on. Wait. Wait, no,
uh,
hang on. Yeah, no, keep
because
talking.
because I'm gonna vamp because Anna's avatar is made from scratch by Silas Merlin. I said it on the
Wait,
on.
here we
I
go.
had
Ready,
I
ready,
had I had.
ready.
Oh, is she morphing into something else
Well,
now?
I hope so. I got stuck in the sofa earlier. Do you remember?
Right, you
Oh,
have to. Oh, yeah,
what
just
happened?
yeah, hit the stand button and then you stand up. There you
Wait,
go.
wait, where?
Hit the stand button on the
Where?
bottom
Oh,
and
yeah,
then
yeah. Sorry, everybody. I'm a complete idiot.
there you go.
Right, there we go.
Look
Oh,
at this
God.
lovely little zebra. This is the zebra that met
Oh,
Lord
look.
Jones.
Oh, he's got a mohawk.
Yes, he
Or can you
has a
sit him
wiggly
down?
mohawk.
It's making me dizzy. It's because he's jumping.
Click on the sofa again and choose sit, and I will adjust it for you.
In the middle, I think.
There you go.
There he
There
is.
you go.
Oh,
Oh,
oh, no,
lovely.
God, love him. Look at him.
I think I
There we
might
are.
actually have a pillow for him. He might like a pillow better.
Now, can I just say, this is not a
Yes.
he, because the zebra in the book,
Yes.
uh, her Amharic name is Abina, but
Oh,
she's no, I know. Oh, there's a lot going on here. Um, but she's known as Mother in the London Zoo. So can we call her Mother? And
of course, mother.
that's the girl zebra,
Yes.
zebra.
Mother, would you like to sit on this gigantic Halloween pillow? You can stand up and then click on this pillow.
I Yes, I would. I'm a delicate soul.
Yes.
Oh, wait.
No-
Oh,
Yes.
no. What's
Oh,
happened?
don't worry. You're just a little nervous, mother. Don't worry. Uh,
I am
Nexus
skittish.
Nexus Dot in the audience says, Anna, you're the most technically versatile of Draxter's guests.
Oh,
So, Anna, we appreciate.
he's being nice to me.
Yeah,
Yeah, I actually am. There we go. Right, there we go. Why is myself? Hang on.
You're sitting again. Let me do a quick thank you for to all the guests there. Now you're sitting on the sofa,
Oh,
and you can actually also click on a button, and then you will hover and you will sort of levitate if you like that. There's a little button that came up, but let me wrap up the show. And Anna, super big thanks. If there is questions now in the chat, please repost them. I might have missed them, but we have Anna for a little bit more in the post game.
you do.
Big thank you, Anna. Big thanks to this wonderful audience for the wonderful audience participation. This is very important to me to express that this is a community effort here where the audience is not just a replaceable studio audience as they have in
Mm,
on Hollywood game shows that clap when there's a clap sign going off. This is a very, very different endeavor that we're attempting to do here, which is an active community between readers and writers and
mm.
celebrating the art of writing. Um, big
I
thanks to the. Go ahead,
Oh, sorry.
Anna. Sorry.
No, I was just going to say there was a question that I meant to answer
Yeah,
earlier.
please.
Somebody asked me how James Joyce felt about Lucia
Oh, good, good.
going into hospital
Yeah.
in England. The answer to that is he didn't know, because Joyce died when Lucia was in a secure hospital in Ivry-sur-Seine in France, and something that I find really unbearable to read is the
Mm.
fact that it is understood that she heard he died on the radio. And then she remained in France, and it was only at the behest of a family friend that she was brought to Northampton. So that is
Wow.
what happened. Sad, really sad.
That really is sad.
Mm.
Yeah.
But, I do also say in the book, there's a family here as well, and we do not know what everybody went through, and it's important to say.
Hmm.
Anyway, go on.
You're talking about generational trauma
Mm,
too.
yes, I'm
Okay.
sure. Mm,
Um, well, we'll talk a little bit more about that in the post game. Big thanks to the team. Strawberry is producing as always, and I hope that she will continue producing in 2021. Now, this is the last big guest that we have for the year. Next Wednesday, we have our informal uh, hangout with just folks like you and I. It's called the Free for All, and everybody is welcome. We'll have a new venue of all guests that have been here. They will be on display. You can find more information about them. But next week is all about celebrating everyone in the audience. We might have some, VIP guests, writers, who knows? But it's all about talking about how this year went in terms of reading. What are you planning on doing next year? What can you recommend? And so that's
mm,
next week, and then we will close out this year, and we will welcome the next one, Anna, won't we?
we will.
And we don't know if it's going to be better or worse or the same.
We
Just
are
go.
not going to worry about it this evening, however.
Exactly. We're
Mm,
going to celebrate a floating zebra,
yeah,
or zebra
mother.
as the British say, zebra
Zebra.
mother.
Well, I am married to an American, so I,
Okay.
I, I kind of, I could go either way.
How do your kids speak? Do they speak a weird mixture?
Well, they're kind of Anglo-Welsh Georgia.
Oh, wow. Oh my God, that is
So
brilliant.
I know, it's very. So they have a mix. There's a bit of windshield. They don't have their father's expressions like sort of oftentimes and fixin' to do something, and none of them say y'all, which I think is a bit of a
Yeah.
disappointment. Y'all, or all y'all, but yeah. So
Well,
I think we have ladybugs.
okay.
Yeah, as opposed to ladybirds. Yeah.
Now let's wrap and hang out in world. Thank you again, and y'all. I'll see y'all. I can't do that either. I see
No,
y'all
never.
next Wednesday
Mm.
at